Hey, thanks for joining me. So just recently, in fact, probably just the day before this video goes up, I did a review on the first chapter of this book, and I went over, where it come from and what I think about it and all that type of stuff. But I did just the first issue, and I was noticing in here that it says that it was X-Men, this is collecting X-Men 168 through 176. And in this book, there was a part where Kitty Pryde runs into Lockheed, the dragon, and it's saying that she had met him originally before in like an issue, two issues just prior. And I was like, I don't have those. Well, I went digging, and yeah, I do. So I kind of dug these up, and I also found this one, 153. So that is actually sooner, obviously, than these stories. We'll get to this one later. This is a fantastic issue. There's some really cute stuff in that. It's weird for me to say there's something in X-Men that's cute. If you know the story to that, you know what I mean. But these ones, because it said in that big collected book, that was issue 168, it said that Kitty Pryde, they were off into space doing some damn thing, and Kitty had ran into the dragon. They hadn't named him Lockheed yet. I actually don't know when or how that happens, but it said it happens in issue 166. So I found that one. So I dug it out. I also found 165 right before it. And I'm mostly interested in the issue 166, but I did find stuff in this 165 that I wanted to go over since they're kind of connected. These are stories that I had not read before at length, like I was talking about. This big collected book I have read. You can tell how shredded it is. And so I read those, and then all the classic X-Men issues, the Proteus saga, the Dark Phoenix saga. I read all of those, but the stories that are going on in these, like these books I got somewhere. I think somebody might have actually sent these to me in a big box that I forgot that I had them in there. And just digging through, I'm like, oh, perfect. Old issues of Uncanny X-Men. This is great. So I never read these stories when I was younger, but I was aware of them. There was also this collection of books that come out years and years ago called the Wolverine saga. I've gone over them on my channel. They're just four big kind of thick books that kind of go over Wolverine's history of just him by himself, what little was known about him when he was younger, and how he came up through Canada and the Weapon X program and joining the X-Men, and et cetera, et cetera. And they would talk about in those books all the stories that happened in the X-Men stories up to that point, which included elements in these books. And just through kind of osmosis and reading articles and the books referring to them, I kind of know the basic, very basic idea of what's going on in these books with the Brood. So, again, they're kind of newer to me, but I'm not specifically like emotionally connected to these the way I was with some of those other stories because I didn't grow up with them. But flipping through them, of course, the story, it's classic Claremont era type stuff. So it's still pretty good, obviously. And then it's Paul Smith drawing, which is what I was talking about in that big collected book where it was Paul Smith taking over art duties. And I was saying, I know it's kind of bad to say to some people, but and when I was younger reading these books, I didn't really notice a difference between John Byrne and Paul Smith. I definitely do now. But man, Paul Smith has a legacy, even though he didn't last for very long. He didn't do a massive, like, multiple year long run, but he left his mark for sure. Like I was saying, I'm a little bit less interested in what goes on in this book because, one, I don't know everything that's building up to it, and I don't have a connection to it on an emotional level because I read it as a kid. But there's some interesting stuff in this I wanted to talk about. I do have to say, I'm kind of... I never cared for the Brood. Were they ever really a big deal outside of this initial storyline? They just feel like kind of a Aliens xenomorph kind of rip-off concept, except more insect-like. I mean, the xenomorphs, are kind of insect-like anyway. Like, think of them as like giant lizards, but they kind of feel like they're more bug-like than lizard. But anyway, the point being, these Brood things, I think it's kind of an interesting story for what happens in these books. It creates some interesting story points that the X-Men have to deal with. But as far as like classic villains, these fucking bug things, the least interesting thing out there. But what happens with the X-Men in these books creates some really interesting drama that makes for interesting reading. So even if you have like a boring cliche villain, it gives you the opportunity to, if you're a good writer, and Claremont, yes, gives you opportunity to create some interesting story points with the characters. So again, I don't know what was going on before this. They're on a ship, they're out in space, the hull's breached, and they're being, it's explosive decompression. They're being sucked out. Forgive me, that's blown out. So they're all freaking out. And just looking at this Paul Smith artwork, even though these weren't books that I had read at length, because again, I was talking about in the big collected book here, I went through this thing a million times when I was younger. And these are newer to me, but looking at it, this is very familiar work. It looks so good. And these classic versions of the X-Men, there's just no better version of them than these guys. But so, of course, the X-Men are going to do all kinds of cool team shit. There's a hole in the wall of the, whatever, I don't know if they're the spaceship or a space station. So Colossus is kind of blocking it. They all work together. Wolverine's almost getting sucked out. Cyclops does a thing where he uses his optic blast to cut a hole in the floor of some debris, sends it flying. Colossus gets out of the way, and that seals it shut. And using teamwork and the power of friendship, they succeed, plug the hole, and they're all going to survive. Good job, team. Back on Earth, we've got Stevie Hunter, Moira McTaggart, and Ileana Rasputin. We all know Moira, we all know Ileana, and I was talking about in that previous book, I don't understand why this Stevie Hunter character is in these books and what was the important kind of addition that she brought to the books. I know that she was a dance teacher for Kitty Pryde. I get that. I'm okay, you're trying to give Kitty something to do that's different, that's age appropriate, which is something that'll come up later on here in the book. I just don't get the point of this character. And in the video that I put up about in that big collected book where Kitty had to face those alien slug things in the basement, this character's there too, this Stevie Hunter. And I was asking, why does she exist? And one of my commenters said her point in the story is to show up and say that she has a bad knee whenever the story demands it. And I laughed out loud because I'm the few times I've seen this character show up, it's always something about her knee. And then I flipped this book open and she's sitting here talking about her bad knee. So this commenter, I'm sorry, I can't remember which one of you it was. If you're watching this, I'm sure you'll know. You can point it out. One of my long timers, I can't remember which name it is, and I already got my phone hooked up here, so I can't look it up. So it's just funny. I don't understand the point of this character. We get into the story point where this was actually interesting, something I didn't know. I think this is before the New Mutants were introduced. Somebody can correct me on that. But Moira comes in to talk to Professor X. She says she got a letter from Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four concerning a young Vietnamese girl named, I'm not sure how you pronounce this girl's name. It's Karma, but is it Xian Koi Man? I've never known how to pronounce that. But there's a mutant, and, her control over her abilities is self-taught. Reed Richards feels like she'd fit in with the X-Men and wants to know if Professor X would help out. And Professor X says no. And so Moira says, okay. And so Professor X is like, no argument. And so she kind of alludes to the fact that these two have been fighting a whole bunch already. She's like, we could scream at each other. We're not going to get anywhere. It's your life. Do what you want. But fortunately for the girl, you don't want to take her in. That's fine. That's your choice. I'm not going to argue with you anymore. I've had enough arguing. There's some other places she could go. We could send her to Magneto or to Emma Frost. And Professor X is like, are you nuts? Magneto's the X-Men's greatest foe, and Mrs. Frost and the Hellfire Club are just as bad. Why would you turn the kid over to evil mutants? And so she starts making the argument that because with them, at least she'll have the opportunity to learn how to cope with her abilities, which I think is a dumb argument to make. If you send off a young, impressionable mutant to go learn how to handle their abilities from the most evil villains the world has to offer, she's like, well, at least they'll have a chance. And Professor X is like, oh, so that's how it is. It's them or me, and there's no way around this. It's kind of like I think they're trying to present a moral conundrum that we have to have arguments about to kind of dissect the problem. But I really find it shocking that Moira would actually suggest, we'll just send her to Magneto or the Hellfire Club. They'll teach her to use her powers. It's kind of fucked up. So anyway, Professor X, he just kind of, it says he thinks of his oath as being a teacher and a physician, and to a kid he's never met, whose life is in his hands. He gets this letter, and I guess he's making the choice here that he will reach out and take this girl under his wing. Now, I know there's an ad in the back of one of these. Let me see if it's this one or the other one. Yeah. The New Mutants, a graphic novel by Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod. So is this right before the creation of the New Mutants as a title? I mean, I guess it has to be, because they're setting it up here, and then along comes the New Mutants. So it's just kind of interesting to see where everything's kind of starting here. Another story point that I know only a little bit about, and I don't really know how it started, but Storm's up here in space with the X-Men. She took off on her own. She's drifting through some kind of nebula. It's got some kind of abilities that she is supposed to be affecting her. Basically, the story that's going on is the X-Men are all infected with the brood. Like, it's kind of like the xenomorph thing. There's something growing inside them, and it's going to change all of them. And as far as we know, Wolverine's the only one. He got infected, but his healing factor fought it off. It almost killed him, but he was able to expel the brood influence, and so he's not going to be changed. But all the other X-Men have it inside them. And Storm's not liking that at all, so she's trying to find a way to deal with the situation, I guess. And so suddenly she starts transforming into the lizard thing. And so she freaks out, she falls over. The metamorphosis is nearly complete when the shuttle emerges from the nebula. There's some kind of bright light, and for some reason, the nebula, the light, something stopped the transformation, and she's herself again for a moment. So she kind of was able to resist it, or it stopped. I'm not sure exactly what they're trying to imply here. It says that sudden influx of power caught the embryo off guard, enabling me to reverse the transformation. She's like, I won't be able to do that a second time. So if she's going to do something, she's going to have to do it now. So she explodes the spaceship she's in, absorbing the element, the energy from a star. I think it's trying to say. She summons the power, with a last lingering look at the celestial glory about her, Storm summons the power from the entire core, and for the briefest moments, a new star shines in the firmament. The process is surprisingly simple, no more actually than when she draws energy from the earth to manipulate the weather, but in this case, things are magnified to an unimaginable degree. As Storm hopes, the embryo does not survive the ordeal, neither does she. So it's implying that she manifests her powers, it vaporizes the brood embryo, killing it, but it also kills her. So now she's dead, naked, floating through space. And I honestly don't know how she survives this later on, because obviously she does. And so the X-Men are together. They're chit-chatting back and forth. Things are kind of dour. Wolverine's talking about he survived the transformation, but I don't know about the rest of you. Lilandra's here. She said she's going to take out the brood. They've caused so much death and destruction. She's going to do that. Another interesting story point that I feel like the way it's being described here, this is the first time that it's implied, and please, for you longtime readers, some of you guys out there have been reading these books in real time because you're older than me, but it kind of implies that this is the first time I guess it's either the first time Wolverine sees it, or they show that Nightcrawler is a deeply religious person. He's sitting here praying. I mean, he's like, In nomine Patri, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti, Amen. Wolverine's like, what are you doing? And Nightcrawler's like, what does it look like? Wolverine's like, I guess I never figured you for the religious type. And I'm like, that's really weird. Like, this is the introduction of the religious component to Nightcrawler? Is that true? Longtime readers, please clarify. I don't know. So, yeah, Nightcrawler just kind of has a little conversation back and forth. And, he's talking about, he says he draws comfort from my beliefs and from prayers. Such comfort is dearly needed by us all. You should try it, Logan. You might, who knows, you might like it. Wolverine says, I did in the army, my mistake. I believe in nothing, never have, and never will. What matters is what I can see, hear, smell, taste, touch, tangible things, physical things, reality. The rest is imagination. And Nightcrawler says, you have no use for that? And Wolverine says, nope. Well, I'm sorry, my friend. So you get two people with very different kind of philosophical views on life. Nightcrawler believes in the divine and a higher power, God. Wolverine does not. But you know what? They can have a conversation about what they think, about what they feel, about what's important to them, and still maintain respect and friendship without screaming at each other and yelling at each other and telling each other that the other one's dumb and stupid. And they're still best friends. And they're like, well, this is how it is, but hey, let's go find a beer. Literally, that's what they're like. Let's go see if we can find a beer on this space station. So, again, really well done. It's giving you a concept with two different kind of ideals. They discuss it, they dissect it a little bit. Character is revealed, and the interest in the story is all the more important to us, the readers. And it's just such a simple little conversation. It's so well done. These old ads are fun but silly. Oh my God, is this the Atari Spider-Man game? I used to play that shit. It fucking sucked. It was sort of doable and microscopically fun to a kid a little bit, but my God, when you think about it, it is just the worst. So, again, I guess I should point out, I'm really, really loving the Paul Smith artwork on this stuff. He was so talented. I'm sorry, forgive me. Is he still alive? I guess it depends on your opinion. If John Byrne has to leave the book, is there a better artist to take over? He maintains the character model sheet designs. They look like who they're supposed to be. The style of the book didn't drastically change into something unrecognizable. It's still got a distinctive look if you're paying attention. Like I said, I didn't really notice a difference between them at first because when I was younger, I didn't pay attention to the artists. I just read the comic and loved it or hated it. And usually it was I loved it, especially the X-Men. But man, is he good. And again, this is one of those cases where this old newsprint and the way the coloring works on it just looks fantastic. But Kitty is having nightmares about all this horrible stuff that's going on. And then this is where we get into an element of this book that I'm actually dramatically shocked at. Questionable conversations to be had. I've been talking about having a concept that two characters debate back and forth and talk about both ways, the way this situation could go. And we're kind of left to think whatever we want about what the best way to go is for us personally. Like for Wolverine, he's not interested in the spiritual. For Nightcrawler, he 100% is, but they're still homies. We're about to get sort of a similar conversation, but I feel like Chris Claremont, we'll talk about it when we get to it, but she's basically having a nightmare, and Peter, Colossus, he notices she's having a nightmare. She wakes up screaming. He's comforting her. He's like, it's all right. I'm here to protect you. It's okay. Just calm down and shut up. So, Colossus is like, was that a bad dream? She's like, yeah, of course. And Colossus, he's like, yeah, we've all been going through it. It's all horrible. Kitty's also super freaked out because she, like the rest of them, is infected with the Brood. She is freaked out. And there's no cure for this as far as they know, and they're all going to die. It's just it's a ticking time bomb waiting to go off that's going to happen soon. And there's nothing they can do about it. So she's pissed. And, Colossus says, well, do you want to talk about it? She's like, no. And so he's like, Kitty, it's no crime to be afraid. She says, I'm not afraid. He's like, well, of course you aren't. My error. She's like, Peter, I don't want to die. And he kind of smiles and says, well, who does? And so she's pissed. She's like, Peter, don't you dare laugh at me. This isn't funny. This isn't a joke. He says, It is either laugh or cry, little one. I refuse to do those monsters, the brood, the honor of tears. He's like, I'm going to laugh at it. I might cry at it. Or I might, yeah, we could laugh or cry, but I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to give these fucking lizards the opportunity to, you know, see me cry and show weakness because of what they've done. So she's pissed off. She's like, Peter, don't you understand? Are you just too stupid or too scared to accept the truth? We're going to die. He's like, yeah, we are. And so he goes on this big, long conversation, basically saying, from the instant we're created, from the instant we're born, death is the ultimate end result anyway. It's just how we face it when it comes. Is it sad? Is it cruel of what's going to happen to us? Yes. But it's just the reality, and we're going to have to deal with it. And so Kitty makes the point. She's like, well, yeah, dying after a long, full life, sure. If we're dying in battle, sure. But to have it end like this, to have this alien thing growing inside of me like a cancer, knowing that I could turn into they call them sleazoids, but the brood at any moment. She's like, Peter, it's more than I can bear. So all of this is great conversation. It's understandable. She's pissed. She's angry. She's young. She hasn't been through much. She doesn't know how to cope with things. Peter's a little bit older, and he's comforting her, and he's just able to deal with it. And she's not having a good time. She's pissed. This is where the conversation took a change, or took a direction I was not expecting, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. Or actually, I do know how I feel about it. I don't know how I feel about them putting it in the book, because I looked it up. I did a Google search, and if my information is correct, again, longtime readers, you correct me. I looked up, how old is Peter supposed to be? How old is Colossus when he joined the X-Men? And it said somewhere between 18 and 20. So of age, 18 or 20. And this is, I don't know how long after he joined the X-Men this book is supposed to be. Let's say it's a year or two. I don't know. Let's just say he's 19, maybe at the youngest. Kitty, I didn't know. I know that she's supposed to be young. I thought she was 15 or 16. If I saw my information correctly, I think that Kitty is supposed to be 13 years old. And like, that's my son in the other room. In like a week or two, he's going to turn 13. That is barely a teenager. That's still a child. So, but there's always been like a romantic flirtation between these two. It never went anywhere until Kitty Pryde was actually of age, and that's fine. But here, you know, Kitty's saying, you know, she keeps talking about how it sucks they're going to change. And then they cry a little bit more, and Peter just holds her, and this is all fine. And so she says, thanks, Peter, I really needed this. And he's like, anytime. And then she says, gee, I wish I was older. And Peter says, so do I. So she says, you're fooling, right? Humoring the kid to perk up her spirits. And Peter says, I knew precisely what you meant. He says, I have never been more serious. So he kisses her. He's 19-ish and she's 13. So they stop, and he's like, however, little one, you are not older. And she says, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does, he says. So she wants to fuck him, right? Like, not to make it crass or gross or use like disgusting language. I know I have a foul mouth, by the way, everyone who watches my channel. Sometimes I listen back to these things and I'm actually surprised myself. I kind of say things in the moment that I'm like, I don't really need to talk like that. But then I'm just like, yeah, I do. It's funny. But that's the implication that they're getting at without saying it. She says, I wish I was older. He's like, so do I. But he understands. He's like, but you're not, and that's all it is. But she's like, it doesn't matter. He's like, yes, it does. And she says, well, why? When you're doomed, what's the point of playing by society's stupid rules? Peter says, this is not the proper time or place. She says, we may never get another chance. So Peter says, you never know, the universe is full of surprises. And then it stops as something shows up, like Storm shows up, and interrupts their conversation. So basically Kitty's saying, basically the implication is that she's underage and they can't be fucking. She's like, but what does it matter? We're going to die. If we're going to die any second, who cares what society's rules are? And Peter's like, this is not the proper time or place. But she's like, but we may never get another chance. So I feel like there's a a morsel of a valid conversation. Like, it's a conversation I think some people can have, but it's too much, Mr. Claremont, for 13-year-old girl. I can get 13-year-old girl who's scared, panicked, freaked out, attracted to this giant, tall, muscular, beautiful man. And she's young and she's emotional and she's becoming a woman. But he should never have kissed her, and he should have put more of like you're wonderful, but you're too young. It's not okay. It just, it feels kind of weird. It borders on icky to me. But I'm not going to go like it's disgusting and it's horrible and it's atrocious, because it's a comic book. It's made in the late 70s, and I don't believe for a second that there is any kind of ulterior, disgusting motive in this conversation from Chris Claremont as a writer. I don't know. I feel like it really is off-putting in a weird way. Like, these two get older and they do eventually hook up again when she's definitely of age, like she grows up and it's all fine. But here, 13 and 19, to even have him kiss her, it's one thing to have her kind of like as a youthful girl say, man, I wish this was possible. And he's like, you're a kid, you know, I'll look over you like a protector and a brother, but you're a child. And he's kind of like, yeah, it would be cool, it's just not the time. Really weird. I was really shocked at this page. It's really strange. It's interesting, but kind of weird. So, that being said, I'd really be interested to hear your guys' kind of conversations about this. But whatever the hell Storm did previously, where she blew herself up and she's floating through space, she's got some kind of like abilities where she can manifest herself like a ghostly apparition, appearing to the X-Men in different ways. Like Colossus can see her. That's what interrupted the inappropriateness there. Wolverine and Nightcrawler see her. There's something going on there. She appears in different forms. She appears as a young child. I don't know what's going on. And also, there's this thing going on with these big, giant space whale fish things. We'll get into that in the next book. Because, again, I haven't read the previous stories. I'm not particularly interested in all this other stuff. It's the character elements between the X-Men that I'm actually really interested in. That's the interesting stuff. But Storm is appearing kind of like a ghostly apparition. Whatever she did, she's showing up and she's kind of giving direction. But these things, the Akanti, they're kind of like revered space animals of brilliant and blah, blah, blah. We're going to get into that in the next book, which I was actually going to do both of these books together at the same time, but I've just spent 30 minutes practically talking about this one. I actually intended to just blast through this one quickly and get into the next one, do it all in one video. But I'm trying to make these a little shorter, plus it kind of spreads out content through the channel, because, and I'm only bringing these up because I just did this one, and this is the story immediately preceding it, which affects the kind of the storyline going on in here. And I normally try to break up and not do like a bunch of X-Men books all in a row, but it looks like you're going to get 3 days in a row of classic Paul Smith, Chris Claremont X-Men. So you're going to get this one. In the next video, we're going to do this one here. So I'm going to shut the camera off, start a new video, and just kick out that other book. So I would really be interested to understand or to hear what your guys' kind of thoughts are on these elements that I was talking about in this book. There's some interesting, like I was talking, philosophical conversations between Wolverine and Nightcrawler. Really interesting stuff. Beautiful artwork, beautiful coloring. But then the stuff between Peter and Kitty, very weird. So discuss, please. So X-Men 165. I was glad I dug this out and found that weird shit. It's really interesting food for thought. You know, it kind of makes me think about things. But that's all for now on this one. I'm going to move right on to the next video for the following day. So we'll see you on that book here shortly. Thanks and bye.